Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Deep Dive with Jamie Stein. Really excited about today's episode. I have a lot to say, a lot to dive into. We are going to get into Austen Kroll from none other than Southern Charm. And yeah, unpack some stuff. I guess I'll just sort of start this by saying I am by no means what you would call an Austen apologist. There's definitely been a lot of naughty behavior over the years, especially when it comes towards women that he's dating or involved with. Even his conflict with Craig, which to me feels very mutual, and I think they both play a big part in that. And we're not going to be getting into that this episode, but I will say, yes, there's been a lot of passive aggressive behavior. And what's so interesting is I see Austen doing a lot of the same things that Craig does, but for some reason, Craig tends to get all the blame for it. I think Austen's a little sneakier with what he does, and he gets away with a lot more because he's a little bit more polished. So this is all just to say I am not an Austen apologist. However, I am feeling deeply protective of him today, and I'm feeling deeply compassionate towards him. In particular, towards this experience that he had with his older sister, who I think, as most of us know, tragically died when she was young, when Austen was young. She accidentally fell off a cliff when the family was traveling. Austen was there, he was present for it. So a lot of deep compassion towards this experience he had at a young age, and how that might be playing into his commitment issues, his self-described, admitted fear of commitment when it comes to relationship and marriage and kids and life and all of that. And I've had a lot of thoughts about this experience that the Kroll family went through and how it's played out in their lives based on the limited information we've gotten through the TV show. Gotten a lot of hits, a lot of stirrings in me that I've kind of just kept quiet in my mind. And then not this past episode, I'm recording this on Saturday, February 7th. So not this past episode, but the episode before that, Austen went home to his mother, to visit his parents, and he started to confide a bit about his questions concerning his future with Audrey, and not just questions about his future with Audrey, but questions about his future in general, and whether he's the marrying type, whether a future as a husband and a family man with a wife and kids is really the thing for him. And proceeded to have a conversation with his mother where she gave her thoughts on that. And that conversation confirmed a lot to me. It confirmed a lot of what I've been feeling up until now. And like I said, my heart ached for Austen. My heart broke for Austen. Like I said, I just feel very protective of him. And I felt myself having a lot to say about this situation on his behalf. So trusting that impulse, and as always, trusting that there's information here for all of us, that Austen's journey, Austen's drama, Austen's relationship drama is in some way a mirror for all of us as individuals, as a collective. I just thought I'd take a moment to kind of unpack this a little bit more, and yeah, kind of address what I feel going on underneath the surface, potentially with this family, and also, what may have been going on a deeper level for Austen within that very specific conversation. All right. So having said all that, let me just say this up top. I'm going to start big picture, but I just kind of want to bring in the caveat that I'm aware this is a very sensitive topic to be discussing. And, the loss of a child is devastating. It's not something I personally know. And so I just want to be really clear before I even begin. Everything that I'm about to say, none of this is in judgment of the Kroll family. None of this is in judgment of his parents. None of this is meant to criticize them in the choices they made. It is very clear to me that his parents mean very well. It is very clear to me they love Austen a lot. It is very clear to me they love his sister Katie a lot. it is very clear that this, like I said, this experience was devastating and heartbreaking for them. So none of this is meant to be a criticism of them or their grieving process or the choices they made. That said, we're all human, and we're all doing the best we can. And we're all navigating our lives the best we can. And part of this human gig is sometimes we make choices, unconscious choices that feel like the right thing or maybe seem like it's for the highest good, and yet may carry some unintentional damage, or it might have unintentional damage for others. It might have unintentional blind spots. Again, this is the gig of being human. We make these choices and then hopefully at some point we learn from them. So yes, none of this is said in judgment. None of this is said in criticism. It's actually all coming from a place of deep, like I said, compassion and support of his family. And my hope is that in exploring this, it clears something energetically, not only for them, if I'm correct about things I'm picking up on, but also that it might be clearing for people listening to this who could relate to these themes and these issues. Because like I'm always saying, a lot of times the way we're impacted by our early experiences, the messages we receive, a lot of times they're quiet, a lot of times they're silent, and a lot of times they're even unintentional. I think sometimes we get it in our heads that, like, when we hear like words like trauma, for example, it's this image of like, mean parents saying abusive, horrible things and yelling and screaming and saying, you're stupid, or whatever. And yes, that can occur, but a lot of times it's not what it looks like. A lot of time, like I said, the messages are implicit, quiet, or even silent, literally unspoken. And like I said before, sometimes they're not even intentional, but they get communicated anyway. And that's almost sometimes the hardest thing to work with, because it's like, it's insidious, and then as a child who then grows into an adult, you're wondering, like, why am I like this? Why do I carry these feelings inside me when, like, nothing was externally wrong in my childhood? I grew up with this loving family, these nice parents, and yet I carry this rage, or I carry this fear of commitment, or I carry this itch inside me, and I don't know where it comes from. And it's because a lot of times these messages are silent / unintentional. And I'm going to be getting into that in a moment. So yes, let's just kind of talk about this big picture for a second. So one thing I've been aware of from the beginning, in the way that this whole experience with the death of Austen's sister Kyle has been talked about, one major thread that I've been aware of is the way the family talks about how Austen's younger sister, Katie, essentially saved the family. It's always jumped out at me. And to be honest, it made me concerned for Katie. Before we even get to Austen, I was always very concerned for Katie. The way that I heard that, I was like, wow, that is actually a huge, again, this is where we get into unintentional and quiet. That is a huge, potentially huge unintentional pressure to put on a new baby. Because essentially the possible hit I got off that is, you have this family that's grieving, that's devastated, that's doing its best to survive in the wake of this horrible loss. And then it's like, okay, we're having this other child. This child saved the family. Because I think they've literally said that several times. And it just led me to wonder, was Kyle fully grieved? Like, did Austen's parents and Austen fully process the grief? Did they get to the other side of it? Did they heal from it? Did they let themselves feel it all the way? Or did they truly rely on this new child, Katie, to be the one essentially to heal the grief for them, again, to save the family, to put the family back together. Because what immediately happens there for Katie, again, even if it's unspoken, it's this unspoken demand or pressure of like, you're kind of the one responsible for holding us all together. Like the weight of Kyle's death suddenly becomes placed on Katie's shoulders. And not just placed on her shoulders, her very life. Like her life isn't fully her own. Her life is inextricably linked to the death of Kyle. And again, even if there was never any kind of overt expression of this, there's kind of an unspoken weight there of you're responsible for this family's emotions. You're responsible for putting this family back together again. You're responsible for helping them work through their grief. You are here to serve a purpose and a role, essentially. You're not just here to be Katie and to live your life for yourself. You're here to serve a very specific, and I want to say very heavy role within this family. We literally saw 2 episodes ago, Austen and Katie went out and got tattoos of Katie's birth year and Kyle's birth year on their arms. That really stood out to me. Again, Katie's literal birth is being inextricably linked with Kyle's death. It's like she doesn't get to come into this life as a blank slate all her own. And I've just always felt like, damn, I wonder what that must feel like for her. And I wonder if on a certain level she feels the weight and the burden of that. I've worked with clients before who were, for example, miracle children for their parents, because the mother couldn't get pregnant, and then suddenly she got miraculously pregnant, or being, I think it's called a rainbow child, like the child after a miscarriage. And I want to be very clear. If you are that child who is the miracle child, it doesn't necessarily mean that has to be a position of trauma. Again, if your parents have processed their feelings around whatever difficulty they were having before you, and they just greet you as your own energetic being who's here to simply live their own life, well, then that's wonderful. The issue becomes when there's any kind of like subtle place where your very existence, your very life, you're performing an emotional role for the parents or for the family. It reminds me, what's coming to mind? It reminds me a bit of, I've been rewatching Real Housewives of Miami. And one of the things that always made me so uncomfortable and always stood out to me was Julia's desire to adopt kids because she couldn't handle being an empty nester. I just watched an episode where she literally says to Adriana something to the effect of like, I can't deal with the empty house. I can't deal with the aloneness. So basically I'm adopting kids and now I'm happy, and there's a lot of conversation around that and it's interesting because at first Martina challenges her and is like, this is something you have to deal with inside yourself. Like essentially you can't rely on your kids to fill this empty hole in your heart, to fill this loneliness and aloneness in you. Martina ends up kind of softening her stance and going along with it. And again, and we also saw it, like, the brief times that Julia's daughters were on the show. I remember there was one really telling moment where Julia sort of goes to hug and kiss her daughter, and her daughter says something effective like no, and I think says something that communicates she'd already communicated that she didn't want these hugs and kisses, and Julia literally says something like, I don't care, you're not allowed to say no, it's what I want, I'm your mother, I get to have this. And it was just this kind of this constant feeling I get in Julie, this compulsion to use her kids to fill something in her. And again, you're not allowed to say no. You're not allowed to have a boundary. I don't want to have to tolerate the empty space I would have to feel inside if I respect your boundaries. My kids were gone. My kids were serving an emotional role for me there's an emptiness I have to feel inside my own heart. I don't want to feel this. I don't want to feel this grief. I don't want to feel this pain. Let me adopt more kids. And it's not to say that Julia and Martina aren't doing something lovely by giving these two kids a home. I mean, again, multiple things can be true at once. It's never all or nothing, right? Just like the Kroll family is a sweet, loving, kind family. And they love Katie and they love Austen. But we're just speaking to the complexity of things. And I'm speaking to the complexity of when a parent or parents or family put an unspoken demand on a child to fulfill their emotional needs or to facilitate an emotional process inside themselves that's not really there for the child to carry. That really can be its own form of trauma. So coming back to some of the clients I've worked with who were like the miracle children and received that message either explicitly or silently of like, you're the miracle child, you're the miracle child. You know, for a lot of them, it was this feeling of like, oh my God, like I have to be perfect. I have to live up to this. My parents' needs matter more than my own. I can't disappoint them. I can't let them down. They feel the weight of it. They feel the pressure of it. And because oftentimes those very children become high functioning because they want to be the perfect child who lives up to what their parents need and want them to be, you know, they're so initially unaware of how deeply they're struggling because they're just so used to putting a smile on their face and playing the part of the miracle child. And so, yeah, I've always wondered for Katie, what must this be like to have born into a family that says, you saved us, you put us back together? Does she experience that as a pressure? Does she experience that as a demand? Has she felt like her life is fully her own? And especially the way the family talks about it, right? The family talks about it in this reverent way. You are the one who saved the family. You were the miracle. You put us back together. So I can imagine if Katie did have any feelings about that, like, ooh, this feels a little stressful. This feels a little much. I feel a little pressure. I can imagine she would feel tremendously guilty to even let herself know, hey, I don't really like this. This feels a little uncomfortable. She might feel like, oh, who am I to say that? I'm so ungrateful. What's wrong with me? My parents and my family went through so much. Who am I to complain? It's a lot to carry. And even just kind of holding it now, I feel kind of like the held breath potentially of this family. The pressure of like, like this thing happened. Now we have this miracle child. Now everything's back together. Like now everything's going to be okay. The held breath perhaps of the grief, the heartbreak, the rage, the devastation that maybe wasn't fully felt. I am sure it was felt in a lot of ways, but I just wonder if it wasn't fully felt. And I wonder, again, in the place where perhaps it wasn't fully felt, there was this sort of rush or quest to have another child, to save the family, move on. Okay, now we can move on. So that's kind of the Katie side of it. And part of the reason why I'm saying this is to set up the Austen side of it, right? I feel like there's so much here for Austen potentially. So, all right, you guys, like when I feel into this for Austen, let's just start with the fact that he survived. You know, he was the surviving child. I have to imagine, especially at that young age, there is a strong possibility of survivor's guilt. You know, why her, not me? I have to imagine just that right there is a heavy load for a young boy to carry. I'm the one who survived, and I now feel guilty for surviving. So much like Katie might feel like, oh my God, my very life is intrinsically tied to Kyle's death, Austen might feel like guilty for being alive, for being the child who survived, just by virtue of not having fallen off that cliff. Now, bringing in this notion, right, of we're having another daughter. Oh, and by the way, I don't know if this is intentional or not. I'm assuming it must be. Kyle and Katie, both the names start with K. So again, right there, another sort of symbol of you are here as Kyle's successor. You are here as the one who's putting the family back together again. Again, it's unintentional, but a tremendous weight for a soul to be walking into. I mean, as I'm saying this, I kind of almost wish I were working with Katie, because I would love to know her relationship to kind of feeling responsible to others, to being the responsible one, to being the one who has it all together. I'm just feeling for her. There must be life task work for her around that. Like, this must be part of her soul journey, what it means to reclaim her life for herself, and also some sacred relationship to being the one who sort of holds things together for other people. Anyways, that's neither here nor there. Coming back to Austen, though, so he very well might already feel guilt just for surviving and for being alive. And then you bring into it this potential notion of, here's this new sibling we're having. She's the one who's saving the family, bringing the family back together. This is where I'm going to get into silent messages, you guys. I can imagine the possibility that if I'm this young boy and my sister has died and the family is devastated, the family is heartbroken, it's like, this is like kind of wrecked our lives. And then it's like, oh, we're having another daughter. She's the miracle that's going to save the family. She's the miracle that brought it back together. She's the one who's sort of going to redeem us. I can imagine it's a very distinct possibility that at an unconscious or semi-conscious level, a young boy might interpret that as, I'm not enough for my family. I'm not enough for my family. I wasn't enough to hold it together. It's like, not only do I feel guilt for surviving, but I'm like a relic of the destruction. I'm a relic of the grief. I'm a relic of the devastation. And now we need another kid to come in to save us. I'm not enough. I wasn't enough. And almost feeling kind of like, the way I experience it in my body is like, I feel like a stain, kind of like a stain on the family, or part of the family's stain. And now we need a new kid to come in and make it all better. And I have to imagine for Austen, that might be a very heavy weight to carry. And again, I want to say, I don't think his parents would have ever I don't think his parents thought that. I don't think his parents intended that. I don't think they ever would have wanted to give him that message. And that's why up top I was talking about this notion of unintentional messages. Sometimes the trauma is unintended. Sometimes it's silent. Sometimes we're more marked by what's unspoken, unseen, unheard, unintended than the things that are overtly spoken. Because again, like I said up top, there's something almost insidious about it. You can't quite put your finger on it. And then you just think you're crazy. And again, kind of like with Katie, I have to imagine for Austen, if there is a place in him that is in any way sort of resentful of the family and the family narrative, he's going to feel fucking guilty for that. Who the fuck am I to get angry? My parents have already been through so much. They love me so much. They've given me everything. They've been through hell and back. Who am I to resent them or these messages on any level? But I can also imagine, again, if there is kind of this narrative in the family of like, oh, this is amazing. Kyle's here. Or Katie's here. The miracle baby. We're a happy family. This is nothing but great. Smiles on our faces. I can imagine a place where someone like Austen might secretly resent that because something in him is getting skipped over. The survivor's guilt, the boy who wasn't enough, perhaps the boy who's looking around saying, what the fuck is going on here? Why are we putting a smile on our face over this? There's something kind of fucked up about this. I don't want to play along with this narrative. I've got feelings that need and want to be seen and heard. And I don't feel like there's a place for them because my parents cannot handle them because of everything they've been through. So I just kind of have to like swallow this all down and go along with the party line. Again, this could all be unconscious. But I bring this in because when I kind of feel into Austen's fear of commitment, and I do think that's a lot of what's going on in terms of like his relationship to women, because I have often wondered, I'm like, well, is there, like this, like the thing with his sister, it wasn't like a romantic wound. It was his sibling and it was death. And it was when he was so young. This wasn't a romantic wound. And yet it's always felt like part of these intimacy issues feels connected to that in some way. I mean, not to get reductive, but it's just felt like that energetically. And I think what I really feel in him is the intimacy issues are part of a deeper pattern of a fear of commitment to life. Because, I think part of why Austen gets away with a lot, and part of what's great about Austen and what's charming about him, is that he does have a big heart. Austen has a big, loving heart, and you can feel it. Like there's something in him that feels like it wants to gravitate towards a meaningful relationship and being engaged with life. He's got this big, buoyant heart. And whenever I've kind of dropped into him towards like fully showing up in relationship all the way, fully showing up in life, being fully engaged, being fully committed. I mean, I'm feeling it right now. It's like I literally, you can't see me at home, but I'm like literally pulling back in my chair and my heart braces. And it's like, no fucking way. I'm like shaking my head back and forth, and I feel like a kid. Like I'm actually, my lips are curling inside my mouth, which obviously I have to keep uncurling them because I need to speak into the microphone. But it's like, it feels like this 5-year-old kid who's just like stomping his feet, crossing his arms in front of his chest and saying, hell no, I'm not, I won't do it. Oh yeah, I'm taking my ball and I'm going home. I'm not participating. I won't participate. And then like when I follow that voice, it's like, if you're not willing to have all of me, you don't get any of me. And it feels to me like this is Austen's deeper protest. Like if there was this part of him when he was young that wanted to say hell no to what was going on, or to say this narrative, like this peachy keen narrative of everything's like A-okay now is bullshit. No. What the fuck is going on? See me, hear me. I have needs. I matter. I'm still here. I've got things to say. I have feelings that matter. It feels like the part of him that potentially didn't get to say that and wants to protest and say no, this is his silent protest. It's interesting because it's like there's a lot of talk about how there's like a lot of Peter Pan men on Bravo, Summer House, Southern Charm, and I've talked a lot about Kyle Cook, who, similar to Austen, huge heart, and Kyle really cares about people in the group in the sense of family, and yet he refuses to commit, to his own marriage. And is someone who has a Peter Pan syndrome. And when I've explored this in Kyle, it's been a very similar feeling of like his refusal to grow up, his refusal to step into manhood. It feels to me like an unconscious protest, like the part of him that wanted to say no to whatever the fuck was going on in child, like the part of him that actually cared about people and wanted to speak up and say, what the fuck is going on here? That wasn't allowed. That no is now unconsciously coming out in his refusal to grow up. It feels similar to me with Austen. It's like, fuck no. Like, it's like, this is what it is. As Austen, if I commit to life, oof, it feels like deep self-betrayal. Because the thing is, look at his conflict with Craig. Look at how Austen conducts himself. Like emotional truth matters to Austen. Like emotional truth matter. He's an emotional sensitive guy. He wants to talk it out. He wants to get to the root of things. Again, I think he's got a big heart. He wants to be in an honest relationship with people. I'm suddenly, that feels good. That's where he excels. I'm kind of suddenly getting essence, energy for Austen. He wants to be in deep, loving relationship with people. Oh yeah, and he's a spitfire. He wants to tussle. He wants to play tug of war. I say my truth, you say your truth. He kind of loves the heat and the drama and the conflict. It's kind of what turns him on, literally and figuratively. So he's really into, if I'm right about this, it feels like Austen's really into the juice and the drama and the fire of honesty and relationships. So if that's his essence, and then he's got to tiptoe around all of that to take care of his parents, and he's got to deny these deeper needs in himself, and he's wrestling with these very deep feelings and he never gets to speak to it. It could feel like a form of deep self-betrayal. And so then it's like, Yeah. Because if there's sort of this like peachy keen narrative where, oh, we're getting the matching tattoos, everything's great. Katie saved the family. We're not, we're nothing but perfect. I'm not saying they think they're nothing but perfect, but that's kind of the tone of the narrative. I can feel how that might really go against something very native in Austen's essence, the one who wants to tell truth mutually, get into the nitty gritty of real human relationship, love and be loved, see and be seen for all of who we are. But instead, I got to ignore all this like dark shit that's going on that I've grown up with, put a smile on my face and act like everything's a-okay. No fucking way. No fucking way. You don't want all of me. You don't get any of me. I'll give you little pieces. But if you're saying you don't want all of me, then you don't get all of me. And really feeling how showing up would feel like deep self-betrayal. And like potentially there is a voice in him that is like, none of this is okay. I want to be seen and heard for who I fucking am. And it's not fucking fair that I don't. And I'm tired of putting my emotional needs on the back burner for the sake of everyone else. What about me? That's kind of what I'm hearing from the boy, from the man. What about me? What about fucking me? So okay. So that's kind of what I feel here. So coming back to this scene with his mother, oh man, the scene like really broke my heart. So, Austen, oh God. These are all the thoughts that I've been sitting with, up until now, up until the scene, sort of keeping them quietly to myself. And so then Austen, and we know like this is the thing, like Austen, he puts these demands on himself. He clearly has so much shame about his intimacy issues. He has so much shame about his romance issues. He clearly sees it as a deficiency. And again, it's kind of this pattern of like, this is where in a way it's sort of like he gaslights himself a bit, right? Because it's like, if I'm right about what I'm picking up on, inner child Austen has every right in the world to his core feelings of, rage and grief and a desire and need to be seen and heard for who he is. But then if those suppressed feelings then express themselves through a fear of intimacy where he gets passive aggressive and shitty towards the women that he's with, and he gets commitment phobic and he can't ever settle down. And then everyone around him is telling him like, Austen, you're an asshole for doing this and you're an asshole for doing that. And then he internalizes that belief about himself. Yeah, I am an asshole. There's something wrong with me. I've got to be better. I've got to outrun this. Right? And so he's trying to fix himself because he thinks there's something wrong with himself, not understanding, yes, his behavior a lot of times sucks. That's not okay. But underneath that behavior potentially is just a little boy who wants to be seen and heard for his pain in relationship to everything that he's gone through. And he no longer wants to hold up perhaps the family narrative for the sake of the family. That part, he's allowed. But he never gets there. And so I'm saying all this because, we've seen him. He's so, he's in therapy now. He's in this relationship with Audrey. And again, you can kind of feel that pressure and that tension of like, this has got to work. This has got to work. Got to turn over a new leaf. Got to be different. Got to be the guy who can play into this larger family narrative, right? There's the initial family narrative of, okay, we've got this new daughter. She saved the family. Everything's great now. Let's put a smile on our faces around all this. This new family narrative of like, Austen's going to get married. He's going to have kids. Everything's great now. And, he thinks he's found possibly the one in Audrey. And now he's hitting a very familiar inflection point where I think he's coming up against that unconscious part of himself that knows if I commit to this, I'm betraying something so deep inside myself. And so we get to the scene with his mother. Oh, so many clues, so many clues. He brings up the tattoos. Oh, Katie and I got these tattoos. Katie's birthday, Kyle's death. Or was it Kyle? Whatever. It's either Kyle's birth date or death date. And again, I'm just kind of sitting there taking this in, like, okay, like this is kind of this is what I'm talking about, you guys, when I talk about the family narrative. They're presenting it as this amazing, beautiful thing. And again, multiple things can be true at once. It is a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful tribute. It's sweet, it's sad, it's lovely. And I, Jamie, am clocking this as, oh my God, poor Katie. Her birth date is literally intertwined with the death of the sister before her. Again, it's like, let's put, like, we're painting this as nothing but great, even though there might be really deep undertones of agitation underneath this. So that's exactly what I'm talking about. But there he is. So Austen's talking about the tattoos. They're presenting this as this amazing thing. And you kind of even feel like the way that he wants his mother's approval, like, oh, we got these tattoos. Like, there's clearly such a feeling of like indebtedness to his parents and like almost what feels to me like a responsibility to do right by them, to make sure they're happy, to not cause them any more pain or stress. Again, this is the smiley face on top of like the quiet pressure, the quiet demand. And so then his mother says to him, I just keep thinking about Kyle, and she would be 40 now, and she would have wife and kids, and she could be coaching you to be having wife and kids of your own and such. Oh, she would have husband and kids, and she could be coaching you to have wife and kids of your own. I was like, oh, there it is. There it fucking is. I mean, there's, again, the demand, the expectation, the pressure on Austen. You should be having a wife and kids. A very clearly a fixed idea. This is what you should be doing. And the implicit message under that, you're a disappointment for not having done that yet. It is disappointing me that you haven't done that yet. My feelings about this are taking center stage here. It's not about what's going on with you, Austen. It's, I want you to be married and to have kids. It makes me upset that you're not. It's disappointing, and therefore, silent message, there's kind of something wrong with you. But the thing that I really want to bring into this is she literally, and again, I love his mother. Beautiful woman. I am not saying this to demonize her or vilify her. We're all human. We all have these blind spots. But I want to bring in, she literally invokes Kyle as part of this, I'm going to call it a guilt trip. If your sister were alive, she'd be coaching you. So not only is there already pressure on Austen to go have the wife and kids, she's literally bringing in essentially the spirit of his dead older sister. So this is why I was saying the scene confirmed a lot for me, because I'm always looking at pattern. I'm like, in this scene, this is a literal on film, on camera instance of the sister's memory being used in a way that, to my mind, creates suffocating pressure on Austen and gives him a message, like I was saying before, you're not enough and you're not living up to your sister's legacy. If only she were here to somehow make you more of a man and make you better and make it so you're not a disappointment. Again, that feeling of, I'm not enough for this family to be happy. And so then you see Austen basically saying to his mother, he starts kind of bringing in his hesitations around Audrey. And again, this is why I was saying at top, I feel so protective of him. Like, it just broke my heart. It broke my heart, because what I felt underneath what Austen was saying was like, I essentially felt it was like, Mom, give me permission to have issues with this. Like, give me permission to have questions. Give me permission. Make it okay. Like, let me know I'm not a horrible person. Let me know I'm not a disappointment. Let me know I'm not a defect. I really felt like he was trying to get her permission that it's okay, that he's having questions, hesitations, and that he's not ready to pull the trigger and he's having commitment issues. I really felt like that's what was going on. And then again, his mother, his sweet mother, she, I would say, doesn't really pick up on it. She just kind of is like, well, I don't know if you ever know if you're ready. And, clearly, again, she's not picking up on what he's saying. She's not asking him questions to help him reflect. She's not saying, Austen, you know what, like, take your time, like, whatever you sort of need in this process to help you figure it out. Like, there's nothing about this conversation where Austen is centered. It really kind of gets subtly and then not so subtly engineered towards what the mother wants for him, which is for him to propose to Audrey and settle down. And so then Austen basically lays it flat, and he brings in what I think is a very legitimate and valid question for himself, which is, what if I'm not the marrying kind? What if this isn't for me? Which I think that's a very look, we could get into the whole culture of Southern charm and the fact that, like, from the beginning, someone like Shep was saying, I don't want to settle down. And then you had people like Cameron being like, yes, you do. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. It's like, why can't you let people be single? Why can't you let people, like Whitney is kind of a perpetual bachelor, and Patricia seems to kind of just let him be. But, I think it's very responsible. I mean, personally, I do think Austen deep down is engineered towards a relationship. But the fact is, he's not going to get there until he clears out some of these deeper emotional issues. And until then, he does get into these relationships and he causes harm. And so I think it's very self-responsible of him to ask the question, maybe this isn't who I am. And maybe there's a different path for me. And if he were my son or my friend, I would sit across from him and I would say, yeah, you know what? That's a totally valid question. And you should explore that for yourself. Especially, you should explore that for yourself before you're going to continue forward with someone like Audrey, because it's certainly not fair to not ask those questions and to lead someone down a path and then, kick them to the curb when you realize you're not for it. So I think Austen is asking the right questions. And again, kind of what I heard underneath this was him asking permission from his mother. Like, Mom, can you make this okay? Can you make this okay? Can you give me permission to take this space? Can you say to me, Austen, I will love you no matter what? Austen, like, do what makes you happiest. Carve the way in life that works for you. Like, we've got your back no matter what. I really felt that from Austen, that he was aching for permission to figure this out on a deeper level. And like, that's what broke my heart, is his mother, who again, I think is a very sweet woman who means well. She, rather than holding space for Austen, rather than centering Austen, rather than supporting Austen to be in his own process to discover what's going to work for him, she instead starts to cry and starts talking about how having kids was the most meaningful thing she has ever done. Which again, that is about her and what she's done. And she's clearly putting that on Austen. And you see, well, I see him. You see him I feel him energetically shut down. And again, even though she's not specifically referencing Kyle at this point, Kyle's been in this whole conversation. And again, this family has stated over and over, Katie saved the family in the wake of Kyle's death. And now his mother is saying, having kids is the most meaningful thing I've ever done. And she's crying after she's already made it clear that she's got very deep preference for Austen to settle down and have wife and kids. And as Austen, like, when I take in my mother doing this, like, what I feel off him, honestly, is get the fuck off my back. Get off my fucking back. Leave me the fuck alone. Give me some fucking space, woman. Oh, that just came out. Woman? Okay. That's interesting. Ooh, that's interesting. So, we might be getting a taste of Austen's ambivalence around women. Again, in the past, his parents have only presented as so nice and supportive and grounded. This scene gave me a little bit more information. And so, maybe there was a pattern of his mom having heightened emotions and visiting those on Austen, and Austen feeling like he doesn't have the space to say, get off my back. And maybe there's a part of him that's part of commitment. Again, self-betrayal. I'm not sort of showing up to these intimate relationships and silencing myself for these, this is Austen's voice, these emotional women. But again, coming back to my original point, it's just when Austen's mother started crying and talking about how it's the most worthwhile thing she ever did, it's like, I did just feel the pressure that's put on. Like, it's the most worthwhile thing I've ever done, therefore you need to do it. And that's why I'm saying about, like, I feel the kind of energetic link between the death of his sister, because it's like there is this narrative woven into the fabric of the family that, like, having children saved this family, and now we want, and it was so meaningful, and now we want you to have children. Possible silent unintentional message of, Austen, you weren't enough for us to be happy, and now you're still not enough for us to be happy. You need to go out and have kids in order for us to be fully happy. And, you know, Austen kind of sitting there like, what did I say before? When is it my turn? When is it my turn? When do I get seen? When do I get heard? And just a voice in him just feeling like it is so fucking unfair that I have to swallow this all down. And then I get sort of blamed for being the commitment shy fuck up. And again, I really want to return to what I felt before, that Austen's essence actually feels like someone who is communicative. The one who would say, hey, this is how I feel. And, you know, like, this is fucked up about this, and this is fucked up about that. And I'm telling you because I love you. And now you tell me what you think about me. Like, I think, like I said, I think he wants to tussle. You know, I think he's got that fire and heat in him. And so, again, it breaks my heart for him, because I want him to have that for himself. But it just feels like he perhaps grew up in an environment where he learned, if I said any of this, even though it's a part of my soul, my heart, my love, it could break my family. It could break my mother. It could break my father. And I can't put them through that. Therefore, I have to sublimate my needs for them. So this is a lot, you guys. So I just kind of wanted, like I said, I wanted to hop on here. I had a lot to say. In terms of what I'm exploring, I just have so much compassion for Austen. I feel such a deep sense of, like, protection for him. And again, I know I already said it, but I want to reiterate, none of this is to demonize or vilify his parents over what they went through. Again, they seem like such sweet, loving, kind people. I myself would love to go play pickleball with his mom and have an afternoon cocktail. They seem like lovely people. We all have blind spots. We all have blind spots. But I'm exploring all this because I can imagine, if you're someone like Austen or like Katie, given their history, it could feel like there is no fucking way I'm allowed to say any of this. No, after what my parents went through, after everything they've given me, there is no fucking way I can say any of this. And perhaps I can't even let myself know I feel this way. Too fucking dangerous. So my little prayer for Austen is, you can let yourself know these feelings. You can work this out in private. You can separate the present day from history. And you can give that inner child space to have his say, to have his fury, to have his protest, to know that there were things that were unintentionally perhaps fucked up in the way that this was all handled. And you can still love your parents. And then bring that heat and that fire and that love and desire for emotional transparency and hard fucking exciting emotional conversations to the woman that you love. And I think, yeah, if I were just to kind of take a step back from this, like, in terms of the macro perspective, I think, like, there's a lot here. But I think what I'm really seeing here is, one, the silent spell. You know, the silent messages that get cast that we take with us, that take a little extra work to excavate, to claim, to own. And also, I'm really hearing the idea of narrative. You know, that our family systems, our cultures, our systems, our governments write narratives. And we tend to believe them. And then sometimes there's a point where we have to question the narrative and claim a deeper truth in the narrative. I mean, we're seeing this play out right now. I mean, you know, not to, like, minimize things by comparing it to reality TV, but, you know, I mean, we got a narrative about what happened to Alex Preddy, you know, domestic terrorist. And then the video footage showed something else. And the reason I'm bringing that up, it's an illustration. We get fed narratives all the time. So I think there's something here about questioning narrative. What are the narratives that you just accept in your own life? What have been the family narratives, the cultural narratives, the interpersonal narratives? And are there any narratives in your life that haven't actually felt totally true or comfortable for you? And if yes, are you willing to listen to that little voice inside that says, hey, wait a second, this narrative doesn't feel so good? And maybe the issue isn't that there's something wrong with me, but this is actually inner wisdom telling me something. And I owe it to myself to listen in a kind, gentle way with support from people who can actually hear me. Whew. All right, you guys. This was a lot. As always, love to hear from you. So feel free to follow me on Instagram for exclusive content, JAMIESTEIN. That's Jamie Stein. DM me, email me, head over to my website, hollywoodreadings.com, if you're interested in my work. And as always, I will see you on the flip side. Bye.